I need to apologize, guys. I've been such a hater. I have been holier than thou. I have been judgmental about math. And I've changed my ways, and we need to talk. Hi.
Hi. So we have had some questions about teaching math to homeschoolers, math curriculum, what's the best? And the answer to that question is...
It depends. So I have been the biggest math snob for the last 10 years.
You have.
Dang. When it comes to homeschooling. Because I've seen what math gets results and I've seen what math doesn't get results.
Absolutely.
And so I've been... And so I have been extremely unfair to teaching textbooks.
Very popular homeschool
Very
curriculum.
popular homeschool curriculum, and actually I'm about to recommend it.
Okay.
I have been of the opinion that it gives a false sense of security to children who are math phobic.
Right.
What I've learned is that is necessary because we've been dealing with math phobia.
We have.
And so I've always said, stop teaching textbooks by grade 8 and switch over to something harder.
Right. Something more rigorous.
Yeah, but teaching textbooks makes you do math every day.
So, but you made that recommendation why?
I made that recommendation because everyone on teaching textbooks was topping out at 500 on the SAT.
Right. So something that's a more rigorous curriculum would, then net a generally higher score if you complete that
Up to 800.
all the way through. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that we've noticed this year in particular is historically our program has been centered around history and literature.
Mm-hmm.
This year's the first year that we've added a math science component at our high school level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been watching these kids this year in a way that we haven't, like previously it was just watching our own kids.
Right.
And their friends, but actually watching how students who are really struggling with math approach the subject and how we've moved almost a whole classroom from, where did they start?
5th grade.
5th grade math. And most of them are about 7th, 8th grade now.
Yes.
And we're only halfway through the year.
But the barriers we hit were math phobia, anxiety, and depression when it comes to math. And so I have changed my mind. I no longer think that teaching textbooks is a bad thing. I think it's an amazing thing, especially when you have some math phobia.
Right.
And as long as your child isn't going into the sciences, I think it's okay. Now,
That's fair.
should we want a higher than a 500 SAT? You get them through the teaching textbook in that subject, and then you move to Khan Academy.
Right.
And maybe do the Khan Academy over the summer in that same subject.
Right.
Which is going to shore up any holes and then take them to the higher level. But I am all for teaching textbooks right now.
As a starting point for students that are college bound, maybe as the entirety for students that are trade bound.
Arts.
Right.
Yeah.
And understand that you need to make a decision for yourself, for your family, for your student, based on what their end goal looks like. And math, out of all of the disciplines that you can possibly teach, math is probably the one that's most variable. You have to have certain math just to exist in a daily adult world. You have to be able to make sure that you're paying all of your bills, that you can balance your checkbook, that you understand interest rates for, credit cards or home loans or, whatever. You've got to be able to budget for your household. You have to be able to do your grocery shopping and not overspend. So there is a baseline of math that's absolutely required as an adult. You have to be able to tell time and plan schedules, all of that kind of stuff. Super, super, super important to master.
Here's a question I'm seeing a lot on the interwebs, and it makes me nervous.
Okay.
It is, what plug and play math program can I put my child in?
Okay.
You can't. You can't until they're super confident.
Right.
You have to be involved in the math. Now, teaching textbooks, you can to some degree because they have the online thing.
Right.
But another one I was about to recommend, and that's why I said this, is Math UC. Really good for your visual spatial artists and theater kids.
Right.
Really, really good, but it requires parental participation. That's why there's a student manual and a parent manual. You got to do it with them.
Right.
You got to do it with them. Thoughts about Math, you see?
No. No, you covered the kind of what that does. Thoughts about the plug and play, and here's where that becomes problematic, because you said that doesn't exist. Well, I mean,
it looks like it exists
on Khan Academy. You can absolutely, it's a responsive system. It's going to continue to give you problems that you're struggling with, because the computer's gonna be like and figure that out. There's also a program that's ALEKS.
ALEKS, ALEKS.
Yeah, that's McGraw-Hill.
It's McGraw-Hill.
McGraw-Hill's program. It's also responsive from a computer standpoint. The difficulty with both of those is that's good for drilling, that's good for reinforcement, for the initial learning side of things.
It's a false sense of security for the parent.
Right, because it's not great at teaching concepts. If you already kind of understand the concepts, then you can work within those programs and build strength in them. And you can kind of advance. There are absolutely videos that walk through things on Khan Academy, but even then it kind of presupposes a base of knowledge, and you have to make sure you've got that base of knowledge for that to be effective.
So for both Khan, which is free, and ALEKS, which is a pretty reasonable
a small
price, I recommend parental involvement. Sit through the lesson with them. If you're confused, your kid is confused. And then there's so many other videos on the interwebs that you can look at and figure that out, and or hire a math tutor, especially late middle school through algebra. After that, you should be okay.
Right. Now, here's the thing to talk about some of those electronic programs. Because they are computer based, they are going to insist that you solve a problem in a particular fashion, and it's going to be looking for a very specific expression of a solution. And so you may get pushback from your student who says, but this is the answer, and that actually may be a correct answer, but it might not be the one that the computer problem is looking for, because perhaps that computer problem wants an improper fraction.
Well, yeah, speaking of which,
and you've got a child that's like, improper fraction, why would I ever want that? That's not proper. We have some of these students. One of them lives in my house. And so they may show the answer with a mixed number. And, is it important to understand improper fractions and that they exist? Yes. But
I mean, when you're multiplying fractions, you're going to end up with an improper fraction that you're going to have to make proper.
Right. Or you can turn it into a mixed number.
Right.
Whatever. When you are homeschooling, and one of the reasons that we homeschool is to be able to do things the way that you want to do them. So that's then again a decision that you have to make as a family, is, do we want to understand the concepts and move on? Or do we want to have a wide enough base of knowledge that we can follow these exact instructions and submit an answer in a format that the instructions are asking for? And there's a value to both of those. Like, being able to follow instructions is a skill in and of itself. That doesn't necessarily mean you will be getting that skill in your math.
FYI, Khan Academy is new math. What many people call Common Core math, that's not what Common Core means. That's a different video. It's new math. And so old parents, new math don't mix.
Sometimes don't mix.
Yeah. Where we're teaching textbooks is math. Like math that everybody can approach. Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing about math, and that's part of what makes finding a curriculum so difficult, because there are so many different ways to get to an answer. And so it's really understanding that underlying how the numbers work that you're really looking to get to, because, I mean, my children don't solve problems the same way that I do. My children don't solve problems the same way as each other. Everyone has a way of thinking and a way of doing math that is unique to them. And so part of math curriculum and part of learning math is figuring out what style works best for you. And so maybe you want to consider using a hardbound book for your math lessons.
For example, Jackson, who is now a web developer, used a public school textbook for math and the 4 Dummies series. Like Jackson would use whatever subject it was.
Geometry for Dummies.
Harcourt or McGraw-Hill. This is Glencoe textbook. And
popular.
This is geometry, so he would use that with Geometry for Dummies. He'd say, give me these 2 books and go away. And he'd come back with tests. Here are my tests. Like, all mathed out. Jordan used teaching textbooks through 8th grade, and then we did this for a while, and then we did ALEKS because it was more responsive,
Right.
and she tolerated it. And then I think geometry, she did the textbook in 4 Dummies because geometry for artistic children is easy.
And it's drawing.
Right. So yes. What else do we have?
What else?
Okay. Science-minded kids. Your future doctors, engineers, and such. Saxon Math. This is OG homeschool math curriculum. As a matter of fact, it's so OG that I used Saxon in Catholic school in 1978. That's how OG Saxon is. And I knew math really good through 8th grade. The thing about Saxon is you have to do it every day, which is what I say to the students who are like, I did math last week and I don't remember this week. You have to do math every day.
That's the secret to mastering math, is the constant drilling of it. You will have to relearn concepts if you take time off in between the times that you're doing it. That's just how math works.
Saxon Math may require a math tutor.
Right.
But if your child is engineer or science-minded, this is the math you want them in.
Right.
Even if you start them off in something, like I said, was easy.
Right.
To get their confidence up and then transition them to this. This is just a really good daily math.
Because that's,
and it's secular.
Right.
So it retests old skills. It's really good, y'all. And I hated it. I hated it for my kids. But I didn't like teaching it.
Right.
But it's good.
But having that daily practice, that go in and drill, super important to math. That's where, if you develop a math phobia, you are really fighting against the current. Because once a child is scared of doing math, once a child looks at it and visibly recoils from the math, they're not going to do it every day. They're not going to sit down and touch that math unless you sit there right next to them and provide that warm thigh.
You literally need to put your knee on their knee, just like this right here.
It's the warm
I've
thigh.
done it. No, I've done it.
The warm thigh method.
So that they'll be like, okay, I have to do my math now. Like it's no joke. They have that anxiety.
Right.
They're not going to do it.
So you want to use a simpler system just to build that confidence before transitioning into something that might be a little more difficult for them to accomplish.
Do you know anything about Abeka?
I don't.
I've heard really good things. I have not used it.
Can I tell you something fun?
Yeah,
Sure.
go for it.
I used that textbook.
Tell us about it.
You want me to tell you, like, right now, I'm just as the voice behind the camera?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the Algebra 1,
That's
right?
math.
Okay,
Yes,
so
Algebra 1.
Abeka was, oh my gosh.
Miss Holly's going to be doing an Abeka homeschool
Well, it's
review
not just
at some
Abeka.
point.
It's not just Abeka. I'm going to leave this in here. I don't know, I might, because I'm going to talk a lot for a second.
Oh,
and we'll
that's
decide if we
awesome.
want to leave it or not.
That's awesome.
Let us know in the comment sections if you guys like hearing the voice behind the camera, because sometimes I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. And if I'm annoying, I need you to tell
This
me.
is such approachable algebra.
So when it comes to Abeka and Bob Jones, that is what we specifically used.
Right.
And I'm laughing through this video, and you see me smiling back here when you said, put your thigh on their thigh, because this is literally what my mom's approach to math was. This entire thing that you're saying is how she started with us.
Even this.
And she was kind of ostracized in a lot of homeschool communities.
Oh, me too. It's fine.
Because they didn't understand the fact that she genuinely taught us as an in-home school. Like, we had an entire class schedule.
Well, that's a whole different trauma we're going to have to discuss.
Where we
I'm
would go through
traumatized.
a day, and, like, we would literally... And they were like, what do you mean you teach your children? Like... And you don't send them off to an association. You don't, like, she literally, in home, she was the teacher for all subjects. And we used to joke that my dad was the principal.
Oh, no, that's old school homeschooling from when I first started.
That's exactly how we did it. And it was amazing. And so textbooks, we live and breathed by the parent and and student textbooks. And the reason we did Bob Jones, and it's funny because I literally had this conversation with her yesterday because Jordan and I just talked about this in the video that released on Saturday.
Right.
She chose Bob Jones because it was the only curriculum at the time that was affordable that had a one-on-one parent textbook to child textbook.
I think
Gotcha.
the homeschool program my kids used Bob Jones. I don't know if Jordan realizes they did, but they did.
Probably not.
She only did classes in middle school, and then they asked to come back to me teaching.
Right. And it was a heavily biased curriculum.
Yeah,
But it was very well
You just
written.
stop and fill in the holes.
well,
Yeah,
but
she just
also
skipped through those parts.
understand that Abeka and Bob Jones are heavily religious curriculum.
Heavily religious. And I mean, even coming from a religious family and background, who is considered heavily religious to the average person.
I mean, at that point in time,
It
my
was
family
still
was
too
leaning in
extreme
that
to us.
direction.
Right.
like it was still too extreme, even for
It
us.
was.
To our viewers, they should understand not all math curriculum is secular, and those are two that are not.
That's wild.
Yeah.
However, it's just about teaching kids math. This is just
Right.
math.
Right.
You know.
Well, so how that appears in a math textbook is usually in your word problems.
Yes, it does.
Yep. Your religion gets embedded into your word
Yes, it
problems. So if that's
does.
important to you, be aware that those two are going to probably have religious word problems.
Yes, it does.
I remember saying
I
that,
remember
like,
now. Which is fine.
I mean, yeah.
If
that's
you can
your
tolerate
family's
that.
thing,
Yeah.
then there you go. If that's not your family's thing, be aware.
And look, I mean, my husband was an elder in a church.
Right.
And I was still like, the Bible's right there. We don't need that right here in this math. That's a personal value
Yep.
decision. As they get older, kids are going to start glazing over. So,
Well, you do have one
yes.
more book over there.
So, what do you mean dig in?
You didn't really explain too much about it.
Oh. So, Mara and I were just glancing through it. And just from what I'm seeing this is more classic math. It doesn't have all that new math, Common Core. That's not really a thing. I'm always going to do that.
It's not a thing.
Stuff in there. This is pure algebra. I can look at this 37 or something years later and go, oh my gosh, I remember this math and I can do this math. It's
looks like
kind
a
of like
pretty
just the math,
straightforward algebra book.
just the math and nothing but the math. And I love, have I used it? No. But I'm looking at it and I've looked at other math and I'm like, maybe I'm just too old. And I'm looking at this going, oh.
And it looks like it's worksheet
Yeah.
format.
Worksheet
So, I mean,
format.
again, it doesn't look like there's much in the way of explanations in here.
Mhm.
It's the actual worksheet. So it would have to be paired with somebody explaining the process.
Yeah, and these are just the quizzes. And
these are just the
this
tests
is the
and quizzes.
quizzes,
So-
and this is the test
Quiz key.
So
So that means that there's a book that we
textbook
don't
that
have
looks
here.
like
That's a
this.
textbook that goes along with it.
So there's actually
that's why there's-
two textbooks that go along with that.
Okay.
You get one textbook that's for the child,
Mhm.
and then there's another textbook that has all the answers in it that's for the teacher.
Okay.
And then there's
FYI,
another one that has all the answers for the quizzes.
FYI, well, that's here.
That's what this is. This is the
FYI, if
quizzes
you're on a
and tests.
budget and you can find them online, just buy the parents' book.
Right.
You can write the questions on a board.
Yep. Or on a piece of notebook
I
paper.
did that with the textbooks. I just went ahead, cost like $15 to buy a high school textbook teacher's edition. And then we just discussed from there.
Right.
You know, and they did assignments. I never bought both. My kids would lose a textbook in a minute. I find them all behind the dresser. I don't know what
Under the
happened.
bed.
Shock. So
Tucked
no.
between the bed and the
That's
wall.
why I emailed my daughter, because you can't hide an email.
Now we have a paper trail. No, but talking about tests and quizzes and things, interestingly, we were looking at something and my husband typed in a prompt to AI. And, you know, there are certainly some things out there that you can be like, I need a 20-question algebra test.
Oh, I've done that this year.
And
I've done that this year.
now you got to make sure that those problems are solvable
Right.
because AI's kind of squirrely
AI's mean right
and
now.
not always accurate, but it'll spit out a handful of questions for you.
No, I haven't given the
You're
kids a
just looking
test
for-
that wasn't initially generated through AI and then checked for
Right.
accuracy. Yeah.
I'm not trusting its answers,
Easy.
but
Easy.
you can get its questions.
Okay. Once again, year-round homeschooling. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Regular homeschooling during the school year. Review in the summer.
Because you have to do math every day or you're going to
Review
lose
in
it.
the summer. This your complete middle school guide or high school guide to whatever. This is the complete high school study guide to pre-algebra and algebra. these books. Beard doesn't love the science.
I don't love the science.
But these books are, it's oversimplified, right?
Right.
These books are great for review.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
Just an
exactly.
hour a day.
But that's exactly how to use them, is certainly from a review standpoint, because my issue with this particular series is that it's very, very surface level, and in some disciplines that results in information that's not entirely accurate.
Right. But they also can cause great conversations if
But
the parent has
definitely-
been into the curriculum with the children.
Right. And again, this is what homeschooling is about. So read through them with your kids, and then you can talk about the things that they don't quite give you enough information to paint a real clear picture on.
So, in summation, I take back everything I said about teaching textbooks and some of the homeschool curriculum packets for math that I've said are too easy and build a false sense of security. Get your child secure in math first.
Build the
And
confidence.
then worry about their SAT score.
Right.
Okay?
Because you have to have the confidence to be able to build into any of the other curriculums. And especially if they struggled with that in the beginning, or if you're starting homeschooling late and they're coming out of public school and they stopped learning math 2 years ago and nobody caught it because they were just being promoted. You know, make sure you build that foundation.
The only other curriculum that I think I have anything to add about is Khan Academy, which we've mentioned several times. If your child is behind, and it's a conversation just had outside, if your child has math holes, go into Khan Academy, go back to like 3rd or 4th grade and
Arithmetic.
just work your way, or arithmetic.
Yep.
Because they have it by grades and then they have it by
content area.
content. Start with arithmetic and just work your way forward, and that should close the holes up. But then when you get them to a point where they're like, I don't know anymore, this is hard, switch them to a textbook that works with them, or a curriculum program that works with them.
Because the other one, because we've talked a lot about drill, make sure you're doing math every day. A tool for that. Again, though, you're going to be getting the problems in kind of the new way that that education's approaching math, but you can get them on Duolingo.
Oh, I was going to say, talk about Math Lingo. You just
Because Duolingo has a section now on math, and it gamifies it. So you get a daily streak, and you know, you can earn badges and things like that for completing each stage. And
I'm a huge proponent of warm-up math.
Yeah.
Every session. Just throw out multiplication facts, throw out addition facts, throw out division facts, get some mental math going. And once they've gotten through that 10 minutes, then you go into your math.
Right. Then you start
If you
teaching
do
new concepts.
nothing else in the car.
Right.
We had games in the car. We had grammar and math games in the car. Now,
there are some
I just
really-
made them up.
Well, but there are good math games out there. There are things like the 24 game and, you know, a variety of different kind of games built around playing cards and stuff like that that you can do that are math, that, you know, reinforce math foundations. Because anytime you can make it fun, you're going to find less resistance on doing that math every single day.
So finally, math can be scary for homeschoolers. Math can be scary for homeschool parents.
Math can be scary for any school. Like, math can be scary if that's not the way that your brain is initially wired to work, or early on.
Or you have math trauma.
Or you have math trauma. If you early on, you didn't have the teachers that explained things the way that your brain wanted to do it, having to go back and relearn things it's just something
It can
that
be
hard.
awful. So focus on getting your kids comfortable with math. The most math-phobic kid I ever met ended up doing a series called The Life of Fred.
Also religious.
Is it?
It is.
I gave my book away, so I can't check. But it was like a story that told about math, and there was a geometry one about Pythagoras. Or whatever, and that was kind of cool. Get your kid comfortable with the math, and then ramp up to harder maths based on what they want to do in their life.
Right.
All math isn't for everybody.
Right.
All things aren't for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, always start with what's the end goal. You know, how far do we need to go through math? Are we just looking at basic adulting math? Are we looking at math that will work in a trade? Because there are some things, like for a number of trades, geometry is super important.
Oh no, yeah, I had someone who was going to be a costumer, and they knew what they were going to be, and I had someone who was going to be a programmer, and he knew what he was going to do. She wanted to stop at geometry. I made her do Algebra 1 first. I lied and said
Algebra
it was
2.
mandatory.
You told her that Algebra 2 was
I told her that Algebra 2 was the
prerequisite
prerequisite for geometry, and that's how I got her through Algebra 2. And then I told her I lied because I'm very honest. So we knew that her end goal was Algebra 2, And we knew that his end goal was
No,
calculus
her end goal was geometry
with algebra 2.
because she was college bound.
Right, because she was college bound.
And if you're college bound, then you need to check boxes.
Right.
And those boxes are algebra 1, algebra 2, and geometry.
And we knew that his end goal was calculus.
So that's kind of the first thing that you need to understand. If being college ready is important, then you have to have those 4 high school maths, including algebra 1,
But her
algebra 2,
fourth
and
math
geometry.
was personal finance. Now stock market kicked her butt a little bit, but we did it.
Yeah, there are.
And guess who in our family of 4 does our stock market stuff?
Yeah.
She does.
Yeah.
Your children could be more useful to you with more math in them later. So that's my talk on math for now. There'll be more.
And if you have any feedback or any other questions, we're happy to answer them. So put that in the comments. Until next time.